Today we're going to hear from Rob Bramley, a precision ag researcher with CSIRO. Dr. Bramley has been working on an SRDC-funded project looking at precision ag applications in sugarcane production. He's going to discuss how research on a Burdekin farm has helped one grower better understand his farm's yield potential and implement variable rate technology for more profitable farming.
The people who saw the first video in this series will remember that precision agriculture is really all about making use of spatial data at high resolution, and in particular it's a continuous cyclical process whereby we collect some data, make some observations, and that might be yield mapping or remotely sensed imagery. We then collect some hopefully useful supplementary information like high resolution soil survey that might be collected by an EM38 or a Veris instrument, and then integrate those and do some spatial analysis on them with a view to seeing if there are some patterns of variation that help us identify management zones within the block. And so what we've been doing in this block here, this is on Dennis Posibon's farm, we've had remotely sensed imagery for a few years provided to us by Andrew Robson at DAF. We're at the moment yield monitoring, and the harvester that's going past in the background there has got a couple of yield monitors on it, and we've also done high resolution soil survey in this block, and we've used that data along with an elevation model which we can get from Dennis's guidance system, because he's using guidance on his tractor, and so that gives us very accurate elevation. And we can integrate the data apart from elevation to identify some management zones, and then when we drape the data and those zones over the elevation model, we can start to understand what's going on in this block. So Dennis has known for a long time that the yield in this block is variably affected by salinity and sodicity. The irrigation runs in just up at the end of the block here and goes down these rows, which are 302 metres long. And at the bottom of the paddock there, sort of the bottom third of the rows I guess, there's quite a clear depression of yield, which you can see very clearly on the imagery and on the yield maps. And it shows up very clearly on the EM38 soil survey as well. So by integrating those layers, Dennis has known for a long time that he had a sodicity and salinity impact at that end of the row, but he didn't know exactly where that impact was kicking in. And so by collecting this data and integrating it, he can then split his block up into 2 sensible or possibly even 3 sensible zones for differential management, and then think about targeting his management accordingly. So I think in the past Dennis has used gypsum in a reasonably uniform application. With this information that he's got now, in the saline and sodic area he can put a higher rate on just in that area and really try and get to grips with the salinity-sodicity problem, whereas up at this end of the block where the yields are pretty good, he can just put a much lower rate on just for maintenance purposes. The other thing that he can do with this spatial information is that in spite of his gypsum treatment, he knows that potential yield down at the other end there is quite a bit less than it is up here, and so he could choose to put less nitrogen on down that other end and therefore make more efficient use of the nitrogen that he's applying. And then the last thing to say about what's going on in this block, which you can see from the images and the layers, is that the range of variation in the whole 24 hectares is only about 2.5 metres. The high point is just up here, and the low point is right down in the far corner towards Dennis's house over there, but it's only about 2.5 metres range of variation over the whole 24 hectares. So for all practical purposes this paddock is completely flat, and most people would be unable to see that it's not flat. But as you can see, when we drape the data over the elevation model, everything makes good sense in that the low yielding saline sodic area that shows up in the high resolution soil survey is all the low-lying area at the western end of the rows. So we now think that we've got a good understanding of what's going on in this paddock. Dennis has got a much better understanding of it as far as how his management should proceed, and therefore hopefully he'll be able to be more profitable as a consequence.